Hello, everyone. I'm so excited for this conversation, as I know a lot of you are as well. I'm Lauren Van Hamert from Beltline to Broadway. I'm here with Corey Mitchell, who's now with the Theater Gap Initiative. But you haven't retired yet, right? You haven't. You still have. You actually retire in June.
4 more weeks.
4 weeks. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And as always, if you have any questions or comments for us, put them in the chat and I will try to get to them. But it is Teacher Appreciation Day and Teacher Appreciation Week. So it's very serendipitous that we get to chat today. I love this. What made you want to become a teacher? I have a young person that wants to become a teacher in my house. So what made you want to become a teacher?
I think I had lost my mind. Okay, in all honesty, I come from a family of teachers, and my mother, and then on my dad's side, my dad was a truck driver, but he had 22 brothers and sisters, and it seemed like with them, almost all the brothers became truck drivers and all the sisters became teachers. So I come from a long line of educators. Plus, when I think about my great-grandfather and where education was so much at the center of my upbringing, it only made sense. Plus, it made financial sense when I graduated high school because I was a North Carolina Teaching Fellows, and that's what paid for college for me. And so going into education felt natural, and it felt real going through that process.
It's amazing having children myself, and my children have graduated from high school. So they're one is taking the gap year, the other is a senior in college, and it's amazing the impact a good teacher can have on a kid. I have 2 out of the box kids, and the teachers who have believed in them and pushed them, it's been amazing to see them grow.
I think if I may interject one thing, and it is a message for teachers everywhere, is pretty much every adult that you know can look back on a teacher that helped to point them in a direction for their lives. I know I certainly do. I have no doubt, Lauren, that you do, because you're thinking about it right now, aren't you? And
absolutely.
Teacher Appreciation Week really is taking a moment for yourself also to consider that person who helped to make you who you are in your life. And I want to take a moment to thank the teachers that influenced me, both as peers and growing up in school, high school, elementary school, college, all of those things. And so Teacher Appreciation Week, I don't feel it. I'm not trying to absorb it for myself. I want to reflect it out to amazing people who have directed my life.
Well, and I agree with you. It's so interesting because as I've done these interviews, people so often, especially performers, will reflect back on their favorite teacher and that person who encouraged them to sing, who encouraged them to get up on stage for the first time. It's amazing. So who was that teacher for you? I'm curious.
Now you're curious. Oh my stars. It can be a short list or a long list, however you consider it, because I was one of those geeky kids that did band and chorus and theater and took dance and all of those things. And so my dance teacher, Karen Sherrill, or Karen Brown now. She was amazing. My choir teacher, Gail Creech, and my high school theater teacher, Debbie Miller, and Frank Merritt and James Calabrese, who were my band teachers. And through college, um, um, oh gosh, Dr. Rogers, Terry Rogers, and probably my biggest mentor was Lou Criscola, who was the founder and artistic director of Opera House Theater Company in Wilmington. And if I were to, that is the direct circle. And if I were to circle out, I could keep going again and again and again.
I love that. I love that so much. And I think you're right. So many of us have that teacher or those teachers who really shaped us
Mhm.
and informed who we become. And I think the best teachers just force you to think.
Mhm.
For us. So um you've been teaching in Charlotte for 25 years, 20 years of those at Northwest School of the Arts. Is that
Yes.
true?
And so my first 5 years, I actually taught in Wilmington. And I thought, I'm done with teaching. I fulfilled my obligation with teaching fellows, and I am done in the classroom. And I went and got a corporate job where I had my own cubicle, and it just about drove me crazy because I think the thing that I missed the most and the thing that I cherish the most about being an educator is no matter what it is that you plan for the day, there's going to be an event that changes that. And so every day in the classroom is a brand new adventure. And you can repeat an assignment year after year. And every year it's going to have a different spin to it. And that is the thing I hope that I have done is manage to remain nimble over the years and remain engaged because each group of kids in that dynamic changes, and that's been the most fun as an educator for me.
And was it, did you always teach theater or did you teach other subjects as well, like English or?
Oh yeah, I started as an English teacher, of course.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. Um, I'm not very erudite, but I guess Um, but I did those first 5 years. I was an English teacher, but in that time, I was also directing musicals for the school. And I remember the first show was Damn Yankees, and the last show that I did was Once Upon a Mattress down there. And so all of those adventures along the way with that. And so in my heart, I always wanted to be a theater teacher. But when I was at UNCW, they didn't have theater education. So I went with English ed. And that was a path that I understood because of Miss Miller that I had referenced earlier. She was an English teacher and a theater teacher at my high school. And I thought, well, if she can do that, that is a pathway that I can see, and I could do that too.
I love that. So it's very interesting to me, but from the time I was a kid in band and in chorus and in theater in high school to now, seeing kids come out of high schools, especially the magnet program, high schools, schools like yours, School of the Arts. How have you seen arts education evolve over the course of your career?
Ooh, you know, um, it's interesting. I look at the cell phone, and I think the reason I look at the cell phone is because as the years have gone by, when I grew up in Statesville, North Carolina, and UNC Wilmington was about as far away from Statesville as you could get and still be in the state of North Carolina when I went to college. And that was a very rare thing. Most people that I knew that I went to high school with, they kind of about as far east as they would go would be either NC State or Chapel Hill for the really smart ones. And, sometimes they would go, "Ooh, I'm going to go to Charlotte and go to Central Piedmont." Um, but it was kind of that thing where it was local, if you will. And to me, what I've seen is as the cell phone has proliferated and as it's become literally an appendage on a child's hand as a part of their bodies. That has also expanded their worlds.
Mhm.
And you can be far away and still be connected. And, especially now, FaceTime and all of those things where a kid can travel to Michigan or Pennsylvania or Oklahoma or Texas and still not feel the distance and the isolation that they once felt. And so over the years, I think that kids' dreams have their worlds have expanded.
Mhm.
And it's not just for my kids, though, because, it would be nice if it was only Charlotte kids that wanted to go out into the world. But now kids everywhere do it. And as a result, I think that arts education has become more competitive. And I think of what I call it, the American Idol model as well, where they think of creating art as a competitive sport of I'm got to be the one to rise to the top. And so as a result, I think that there are a lot of parents who feel like their investment in their kid in the arts is something that is an expectation of paying off in dividends. And that bothers me. That bothers me because the ones who are making those investments are the ones who really come from the, I hate to call it the privileged place because privilege has become such a loaded word, but the advantaged places that they come from and the idea of the dance classes, the vocal classes, hiring the coach, hiring the travel companion, hiring the consultant that helps them to pick the schools and do all of those things. And I have watched as the application process with pre-screens, et cetera, and the acceptance process has started to skew so much towards those kids whose family has made that investment that pays off. And I think that the equality scale has severely out of balance, if you will.
And I kind of wonder, has that, there's so much, I know Theater Gap Initiative, and we're going to talk about that as in a few minutes, is really founded on this principle of equity. And when we look at our educational system, there are definite equity imbalances. I kind of wonder, has the pandemic made those equity differences even more pronounced because we pivoted to this virtual world?
Oh, yes. I mean, 100%. I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, well, yeah, I'll bet you, their house, that, like I've heard that but to see it in its starkness, to see in real time what a kid's life looks like and what their challenge looks like as we teach them virtually, and to have the pushback in real time from a kid where you're like, I got you, you need to turn on your camera. And how do I put this? The shame or the embarrassment of my life doesn't look like what your life looks like or what everybody else's life looks like. And the thing that I find is that even when it looks fine, we compete and we compare so much now that they have twinkling lights and I don't, and so my room is trash. Or I've got to share, they've got their own room and I've got to share mine with a sibling, so my life is trash. And I become heartbroken over all of that. And what is it that in real time so often that comes to play? Like now, like the last year, that awakening last year with George Floyd, and excuse me for bringing in like social justice into this conversation about the arts. But
we talk about this a lot.
okay.
We talk about this a lot on this platform, so just go there.
Okay. But that is the thing, is that in looking at that, I think that is the magic of theater, is that you're feeling it in real time in the room. And the thing that happened with George Floyd is that we felt it in real time in the room from multiple angles, and we experienced this collectively. And George Floyd was an example of what theater is, which is a collective experience from everyone seeing it and it happening. And so this pandemic is, to me, in many ways, a form of theater, if you will, of this, all of us around the world having this experience together. And while it has pointed out a lot of inequities, it has also helped with our connectedness. So, yeah.
Does it surprise you, as a lover of the arts, as a teacher of the arts, how much we have relied on the arts to get us through this pandemic?
Not in the least bit. Not because the theater, there are things that I think of sports as like our societal superiority, if you will. It is looking at the possibilities and testing the limitations of the human body. Okay? The arts are the collection, is the collective mindset of the society. And so since we are in our spaces, we are in our boxes, if you will, when we had to quarantine, what we have to do is still stretch ourselves, because that is who we are as human beings. And so it only made sense that we had to stretch our consciousness since our bodies were in limitations, if you will.
I love this. I feel like I'm sitting in a master class. I would have loved to have you as my teacher. I feel like I need to take notes. Okay.
Oh, well, it is both ridiculous and sublime. So just wait. There'll be some dumb answers, I promise.
There are no dumb answers, but I love this conversation. Now, you did mention George Floyd. We had George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. How did those events serve as a catalyst for you wanting to do more and launching this new organization?
Oh my gosh. Well, as I said, we all experienced it together. We, you know, I cried so many tears, so many, because, like, I remember that was Memorial Day weekend
Mm.
when that, oh gosh, I've forgotten his name, the guy that was out bird watching, because that was that
Yes,
Sunday
in Central Park.
in Central Park, when the woman said, I'm going to call the police, and she called and says, that all of it, and when the man wasn't doing a thing, okay, he's talking to her and trying to relate, and I thought, well, this is just the worst. And then what was it? 3 days later was George Floyd, and it was this 1-2 knockout punch with that. And then Brianna and everyone who was saying something has to change. And so last summer, as so many people finally started taking stock of what a number of Black and Latino and indigenous and Native American, Asian, Pacific Islanders, immigrant communities have been saying. And the thing is, we have this veneer we gloss over, and as long as it doesn't bubble up too high, we feel like we're okay. Okay. And that boiled over in a way that made people stop and think and stop and talk. And I participated in so many of these conversations. And, I think specifically about this amazing conversation that I had last summer that I hosted on a platform much like this, that was with Johns, and Sharon Washington and Coleman Domingo. And we were talking about protesting. And Coleman said something that really struck me, where he said, I'm not out in the streets, but I'm in a position now where I am going to use what I can do to make a change. And I thought to myself, how can I do that? I'm connected to a number of networks, and it doesn't make any sense to me if the networks that I am connected to, that if I don't string them together to create more opportunity. And that's really where that came from.
Mm. I love that so much. And we're seeing that, as recently as I think it was last week, Adrienne Warren said something similar where she said, I'm not signing any contracts until we can see measurable change
Mhm.
in our industry.
Mhm.
So I think as we re-enter, as I keep saying, the re-entry,
Mhm.
as we reopen our theaters, it will be very interesting to see,
Mhm.
because I think there's a lot of people that feel like you and I do, and a lot of performers and artists
Mhm.
do. Um,
I
you
agree.
talked about the application process, the pre-screening process, the
Mhm.
audition process, this rigorous process of going from high school to a collegiate program if
Mhm.
you are a young student of color who wants to
Mhm.
go into a performing arts program or an arts program.
Here's the thing. I think with just about every other major, when you get to the school, what you have to do is, what we're all familiar with is Oh, where do you want to go to school, honey? I think I want to go to UNC Greensboro. I think I want to go to Duke. And, you work towards that. I have to get this certain SAT score and make these certain grades, and everything that I'm going to do is going to get me to Duke. And then you get into the school and you get there and they say, so what do you want to do? Well, I think I want to do pre-law. I'm going to do pre-med. I'm majoring in political science. The thing about the arts, and that, for students of color, for white kids, for anybody, most of them, if their parents went to college, that was their experience. But when you talk about the arts, all of that stuff is front loaded. You don't get to say, I think I'm going to go to UNC Greensboro. And now that I'm here, I've decided I'm going to be a BFA. I'm going to become an actor. Because all of that process, once you get there and you walk up to an acting teacher, they're going to laugh at your face. And they're like, no, this is already closed. This is already done. And so to understand what that process is, and you're doing it in your senior year, you're doing it kind of in spite of your parents, if you will, all of those things that you do along the way is really tough, and it can be really foreign and really arduous for a kid. So, yeah.
Definitely. So and I think it's really interesting to me, and I only found this out very recently. Only Howard has a BFA in performing. There are no BFA programs. You can't go to most historically Black colleges or HBCUs and get a performing arts degree or BFA.
Well, that is kind of true, kind of, yes. So there are BFA acting programs in schools in a number of HBCUs. But BFA musical theater, Howard is the only place. And it has the same numbers as like a Carnegie Mellon. And so Howard is just as difficult when you think, oh, well, there's opportunity there, but it's not, because it's the same number. You got to keep it nimble. You can't have 70 BFA actors in a freshman class, because that's not a sustainable thing. And so that is, and I did not mean to push back against you. I was just trying to define a little more. But yeah, so that is the difficult part of all of this, is you've got infinite dreams with finite numbers. And the thing that I'm creating, that we're working through with Theater Gap Initiative, is trying to create a little bit more space and to give a bit more opportunity in how to navigate through that process, and to be seen and heard in a way that says to that a school will say, yes, welcome. I need you. I want to help move you along in this process of your infinite dreams.
And it's so interesting. I interviewed some really dynamic women, female identifying actors, not that long ago, who were part of the Women's Theater Festival production of Othello. And one of them is in college now. She's a senior at a program. She identifies as Latinx, and she said, I said, now that you're graduating, what's the sentiment? How are you feeling? Because she's in a predominantly white institution. And she said, I feel like for my white peers, it's, we want you to go out and be successful. And for me, it's, we want you to go out and be successful, more of a question. And I thought that was so telling, because that's what your program, your initiative is really addressing, to give students like Marissa a support system so
Mhm.
as they go through their program. So
Mhm.
tell me what your vision is for Theater Gap Initiative.
So the vision is that I'm working with Central Piedmont Community College on their Levine campus, because Central Piedmont has a number of campuses around Charlotte, but they have this beautiful, and I mean really truly beautiful, black box theater that was really
Mhm.
not being used during the day. And I said, okay, here, let's do this. Let's do this. Let us create an opportunity for students in their gap year to grow,
Mm.
and let us help to guide them through that growth. And so, from beginning all the way up to the end, because to me, college acceptance is on kind of three legs, if you will. Okay, there is the audition process and what all of that means through that audition, applying, headshots, resumes, that portion of it. The second leg to me is making the right decision, um,
Mm.
deciding for yourself what you need and understanding that. Do you need to be in a rural setting, an urban setting? Do you need to be in a larger program, a smaller program? Where is it that you feel like you fit in for the type of learning that you do, and the type of artist that you want to be? Are you technology driven? Then Virginia Tech makes sense to apply to. Are you more steeped in tradition? Do you think that Shakespeare is the be all end all? Are you experimental? Trying to go to Carnegie Mellon, if you are really into experimental theater, doesn't make any sense. But also introducing those ideas so that you start to understand who you are and what your interests are. So it's that second part. So that second leg, as I said, first leg is the auditions. The second leg is the decision making, and the third part of it that so many students ignore is scholarships. How in the world are you going to pay for this? And so I'm looking to guide the students through all three of those legs so that it's got support and it can stand. A two-legged stool is a ladder. Okay, you can't stand. You got to lean it up against something. But a three-legged stool, you can stand on it in the middle of a room and you're going to be fine, to me. So those are the things. So we are looking to expand the students' toolbox of like acting techniques, Meisner, movement, vocal lessons, dance technique, all of those things. Expand their book so that they have a better understanding of who they are as an artist, to make decisions about the schools that they want to go to, and also support them through the technical parts of what the college application looks like, with the FAFSAs and the
Mm.
applications and the pre-screens and the scholarship applications and interviewing skills and essay writing skills, all of those things to help to make them a more complete package, if you will, sellable when they go to stand before each of these schools and ready to springboard into their next phase.
I feel like this program is kind of leveling out the playing field, and I love that about this program.
Mhm.
um, I also love. I mean, we saw one of President Obama's daughters took a gap year.
Mhm.
I know my daughter took a gap year, a forced gap year due to the pandemic, but a
Mhm.
gap year nonetheless.
Mhm.
And I have seen, just in this year of my daughter being home, how truly much more ready she is for
Mm-hmm.
college. So what is the benefit of a gap year when we look at a gap year, especially a structured gap year like what you're
Mm-hmm.
offering?
You know, it struck me years ago. I went to Denmark because our school, Northwest School of the Arts, has this sister school in Hobro in Denmark, and
Mhm.
so every year it seems like their kids would come to Charlotte and stay with host families, and even one of their their teachers will come. One stayed with me back in 2019 before the pandemic, and we had a wonderful time. I love Mott's. He was just an interesting, fun guy. But when we went over, their school system has essentially, it's not exactly community college. It's
Mhm.
like grade 13 to give them an opportunity for maturation, if you will, and to make some of those decisions before they go to university. And that extension, where you have the opportunity to transition a little bit slower. You know, there are some people who are just ready to get out of the house immediately and ready to take on the world. And then there are those who need a little bit more guidance, who, like, their high school experience may not have been everything that they needed. Because I can say my job is less about teaching theater and more about helping young people transition into responsible adulthood.
Mhm.
And I think that if the more teachers who have that attitude, um, and the more kids that get exposed to a teacher like that, it really changes their landscape, if you will, of what it is that they see as possibilities in the world. You know, you can look at, all of us can look outside and see something. We could be looking at the same thing, and the landscape can look very different for them, for
Mhm.
each of us. And I believe that that is the thing that's important in that maturation period for them.
I agree, and I love this idea of a grade 13. They were going to implement that at my daughter's school. She went
Mhm.
to a in the old days we used to call it a vocational school, but they don't
Mhm.
call it that anymore. Here in Raleigh, Vernon Malone, and they did add a grade 13 as an option for students, which I thought was brilliant.
Mhm.
Um, because I agree with you, not all students are some students are ready, but not all students are ready.
Mhm.
So, um, since the events of last summer, since the murder of George Floyd and all of these heinous crimes we saw on television play out real time before
Mhm.
us, there's been a rising up in theater, in the
Mhm.
arts, with started with the We See You White American Theater movement, and now there's a lot of offshoots of that.
Mhm.
When I've done these interviews, a lot of the people that I've spoken to have said that they believe that creating an anti-racist theater industry starts at the educational level.
I
Do
agree.
you do you believe that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that a part of that, that conversation was really interesting because Sharon and Coleman were with We See You, What, and LaShawne's is because Coleman was one of the founders of We See You, What, and LaShawne's is one of the founders of Black Theater United, or BTU.
Mhm.
And it's funny, it's two organizations that are going towards the same goal. And as I was, especially with We See You What, and reading their articles of what they see and what they're asking for, my thoughts immediately were the colleges have to turn out these folks to go into the business. What we are doing from the high school level to prepare students for the colleges needs to be more. And what the colleges, and I'm not trying to call out anyone and say that what they're doing is bad or anything like that, but what the other thing is where the college's responsibilities lie is in, as you pointed out about Howard, every other institution is a PWI, predominantly white institution.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is isolation everywhere. You know, it's one thing to say, okay, yes, we have 3 Black students in and that's doing well. To say 3, and so many brag about that, 3 out of 24. Okay, but the second part of that is that's where the privilege lies in that preparation. But how do you take care of students who find themselves there in that isolation, who find themselves not able or not coming from a support system that can do things like I came real close to having to drop out of school over $300 one time.
Mm.
And having a support system, or someone says I need $3,000. For some kids, that's uncle can write that check, or mom and dad could write that check, or grandpa could write that check. Okay. For many kids who don't come from privilege, that $2,000 means you got to go home.
Yeah.
I talk often about over the years how I've had kids, because I have been really, really fortunate at my school. We really look towards the kids. We look towards talent. We don't look towards privilege. You can't buy your way into a show, okay? But when I look at that, and so we've been fortunate because there have been a number of kids, Black and brown kids, who have tread the path before them. So I've had a number of kids who have gone into BFA programs who are doing very well. But I consider so often what happens somewhere around the second semester of their sophomore year. They come home to have the talk. And that talk is, Mr. Mitchell, I'm thinking about quitting. I'm like, why are you thinking about quitting? Everybody there is white. Everybody there is rich. The microaggressions that I experience, the almost ignoring of what it is that I have to offer. If they do a Black show, it's never on the main stage. It's usually some sort of second stage or student production thing that I go through, and I don't feel appreciated and I don't feel seen.
Mm.
And I think that is really, really important for colleges to start having those conversations. And if I were to have a secondary goal with Theater Gap Initiative, is I want to help to facilitate those conversations to make some of those seismic changes within collegiate organizations and within programs to help people understand, who it is that's auditioning in front of them, that Black people are not a monolith, and every Black girl that you see coming and singing in front of you does not have to sound like Lillias White or Jennifer Holliday or name the Black diva that you think that that's what a Black singer should sound like. So understanding the nuances and the differences in these performers, and then appreciating and helping to create an experience for them to walk away so that it's like it doesn't end their experience with a question mark like Marissa.
Yes. And I hope, Marissa, I hope you're watching. And if not, I'm sending this to you because she is a student that is talented um, and maybe doesn't have that support system that your program is going to offer to students coming after her. So,
Mhm.
again, I love this. So you have so many Broadway insiders involved in your advisory board. It's very exciting. Joshua Henry, who is one of my all-time favorite performers, and some of you may have heard of Billy Porter,
That's right.
um, making the media rounds now with Pose. Um, from what you are hearing from them, and people like LaShans and people like Lilius White, are
Mhm.
we seeing finally, do you think, a cultural shift on Broadway, on our New York stages, as far as the stories that we're going to see when theaters do reopen and the people who get to tell those stories?
Well, that's an interesting question. That is an interesting question. And some of this conversation we will take offline for you and I to have.
I would love that.
Because in some cases, when I hear them, there is hope. But um, there is one thing about the words and the words that are written, and there is another thing about the action that is taken. And I think there are a lot of folks who are, as they say, sitting back in the cut to see what the actions are going to be and if the actions are going to back up what the words are. Because the words are all there and they're all correct. And, on good experience, like conversations with Heather Hitchens from the American Theater Wing and her their earnestness there, from my conversations with Julie Theobald who is with the Educational Theater Association and International Thespian Society, where those conversations that I've been very privileged, and I will use that word, and on my side of being able to interact directly with a number of these people who have the ability to lead the conversations with change. But as we return to normal, it becomes very easy to slip back into old habits. I know that very well since I've returned to school. During the pandemic, and when I was teaching virtually, I was cooking and working from home and doing everything, and I managed to lose about 17 pounds. And since school has started back up, a quick stop at McDonald's on the way home because I have to have 2 meetings after school, I've managed to gain all of that back. And so it's easy for us to forget institutionally as people, but I think that there are enough people who are going to be there holding them accountable that we may see some change. Change don't come easy and it don't come quick.
Yeah. And the accountability piece, I think, is huge.
It's really, yeah.
And we were talking about Robert Hartwell before we went on. When I've interviewed Robert, he said, as an artist, he's much more likely to want to work with theaters and institutions who were doing the work prior to it becoming trendy than he is to hop on the bandwagon with theaters who may have issued their solidarity statements because that was what
Hmm.
they had to do. So
Hmm.
I think a lot of artists feel that way.
Hmm. I totally agree. Excuse me, that was the rocks rattling in my head as I'm nodding and agreeing with you.
Um, I have rocks in my head too. You have no idea. And there was a comment on YouTube that threw me, so I I was distracted for a minute. But hello to all of the people watching on YouTube,
Hi, you
as
too.
well as Facebook. Um,
Hi, Facebook.
Hello, Facebook and YouTube. We have a question from Jennifer on Facebook. How can we change theater to allow for children and adults with different abilities living? And I think what she's talking about is living with disabilities.
I got you. As we create spaces, for one thing, the first thing that we've got to do is expand the storytelling, okay, and allow for more stories in. And I love Stephen Sondheim. I do. I love Stephen Sondheim, but um, you know, um, there are others who create. I tell my kids all the time, and I know I might be talking out of both sides of my mouth when I said I was talking about collegiate and my students of color coming home and saying, yeah, well, all we get is second stage. But when you can create opportunities. If somebody is closing a door in your face, create that opportunity. Tell your story. And
Mhm.
it can be the thing that is used as the catalyst. Okay. The thing that I really don't care for is tokenism, if you will, is utilizing someone who is differently abled or something like that to make a statement about something or
Mhm.
to and I think that is taking advantage of what that is, and it's more of a point to me. Look at what I'm willing to do with that kid over there, as opposed to where the story is integrated in to all of it. And it is tantamount to the story that is being told. And also, I also believe that theater should be a reflection of the community. And so I know that, like I said, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth with this too. And if that kid is a part of the community, if that adult is a part of that community, and we are telling a story that is in a bigger world, yes, absolutely. I believe that we need to add more and do more and figure out more as well.
Mhm.
But like I said, don't wait for those people over there to decide that you're worthy. Tell your story.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree. And Billy Porter is a wonderful example of that.
Mm,
What he's done with his career, it's
hmm.
truly amazing.
And I will say this, and I swear, it seems like I have something to say about everything. But
It's good. I love it.
I first met Billy, I think, in 1997. 1997. I think it was in between Greece and um, Miss Saigon. And the thing that happened with Billy is that he has always been the same. Billy was Billy then, and as much as what you see on Pose and what you see on the talk shows and what you see on the runways, but when he says he made the very intentional decision to stop hiding, like we all knew who Billy was behind the scenes. And what he did was took away the veneer. He took
Mhm.
away the curtain and let the rest of the world catch up with his brilliance, instead of sort of staying behind that curtain, staying behind that veneer, and letting and trying to be sort of what some of the others were saying. But he is an amazing, amazing, amazing person. I have admired him and followed him and have believed in his talent, as have a lot of other people, for 25 years. And finally becoming that sensation, I just felt it was a matter of time.
It's amazing.
Mhm.
You mentioned earlier in this conversation this American Idol mentality, this
Mhm.
reality TV world we're living
Mhm.
in, and one thing that occurs to me, especially in talking to students, is I think we are in this end product world as
Mhm.
artists. You know, we're racing to get to that end product, whether that end product is getting into a top collegiate program,
Mhm.
starring in your high school musical, whatever that end product is at the moment.
Mhm.
Do you find students are losing the passion for the process? And I
Yes.
almost, right?
Yes. Yes. I mean, um, are you familiar with Renee Rapp?
I yes.
Okay. Renee, I remember we were in Nebraska. I had taken Renee and another young woman named Carlin. I only had Carlin had. There were two of them that the three of us traveled to International Thespian Festival together, and that was one of my smallest delegations, and we had a blast. And I was talking with Renee, and she had her phone in her hand constantly. And she was watching and watching. I'm like, child, what are you watching? And she's like, she was watching another student from our school. And she's like, I wish I could dance like that girl. She is so amazing. I'm trash. I can't. And I went, wait, okay, wait. You are beautiful and you are God's gift in your manifestation, just as you are right now. And you have to understand that everybody has a trajectory. Everybody has their own path that they have to tread. And don't you dare try to get in Brooke's path,
Mm.
because you ain't Brooke. You're Renee. And the moment you see your amazingness, you are going to manifest in a way and bless people in a way that you are not going to be able to handle. And then, quite literally, the very next year, she went and won at the Jimmys and then went on to, Mean Girls, and now HBO Max, that Secret Life of College Girls, Secret Sex Life of College Girls, and all of that stuff, and all the things that happened in between all of that.
Mm.
But I think what kids do all the time, and I also blame Glee for this, is, come on now, what in the hell was that? Girl walks in and it's like, ooh, I've got it. Like, this week we're going to do the songs of Cher. Well, it just so happens I have the full charts here. All the other kids have learned choreography. They can harmonize with me perfectly. And we got three musicians here who can play the charts. And let's just do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of rehearsal, and there's a lot of, you've got to, I tell kids, you got to fall in love with theater for what theater is. You've got to fall in love with auditioning. You've got to fall in love with class. You've got to fall in love. The applause is the frosting.
Mm.
And if all you seek is frosting, that's empty calories and you're going to die from diabetes. Okay? It is the cake. It's the cake.
When do you think the pandemic, I think the pandemic's been very interesting because we've stripped away stages, we've stripped
Mhm.
away theater. In some cases, at least in-person theater. Um, and we've had to literally reinvent the wheel. Do you think that's gotten us back to um relishing the process?
No.
Oh, okay. I was hoping you'd give me a glimmer of hope, but no. All
No.
right.
No. And I know that because of everybody else's reaction, which is, I can't wait to get back. I can't wait to see, especially my parents. I can't wait to see my baby on stage again. I can't wait for this, and I can't wait. Now, for me, I had a lot of people kind of look at me and I am so sorry you're retiring from here without one last show. And I went, no, I'm not. I'm not, because I am excited about what the next adventure will be. And I don't have to dwell there because I have gotten more than my share of applause, more than my share of praise, more than my share of thank yous and accolades from what the stage looks like. I understand that. Okay. What I'm really seeking now is justice. I'm seeking equality. I'm seeking the opportunity to create more chances for people who've had less.
Mm.
And that's where it comes. But very few people, I find, think of it in such concrete terms. And that's why I don't believe that.
Mm. Um, I I've been my entire I would say the entire life of my children, I have been an advocate for arts education because I think it's so
Mhm.
important, and so often it is the first thing to get cut
Yes.
in a budget. Why is arts education so important, from where you sit as an arts
Mhm.
educator?
Well, as I said, if you think of if we think of arts education as being a conscience,
Mm.
the one thing that people really can't haven't figured out how to monetize is your conscience,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it is the arts are terribly expensive.
Mm.
They're terribly expensive. Maintaining musical instruments. A kid busts a symphony. A kid busts a timpani, and what do you have? Okay, you have a piece of garbage.
Mm.
Um, it While dance is not terribly expensive for a floor in a bar, the shoes, the rigorous the training of doing that, the training of the body to move in these ways, to put on a theatrical production, particularly musical theater, is tremendously expensive.
Mm.
Art supplies are expensive, and people keep wondering what for.
Mm.
You go to a gallery opening, you stand in front, you rush through looking for the picture that your kid built, painted, but you don't stop to contemplate. And the art encourages this world that has gotten faster and faster and faster, and sound bites to stop
Mm.
and contemplate, to pause and sit for 2 hours and watch a story play itself out,
Mm.
you know, and it could be tragic. It could challenge who you are and your what your upbringing was, and how your parents taught you, and how your parents taught you, and what you thought you believed about those people over there. It can challenge that, and we don't want to be challenged. We love our bubbles and our comfort zones, and the arts shakes all of that up, especially theater. Especially theater. Because when you're dancing, you ain't saying a word. When you're playing an instrument, you ain't saying a word. When you're singing in the choir, it's, a lot of times it's sacred music, and it's one of those things where there might be a word or two in the lyric of a song, but a choir teacher ain't teaching a kid, the baby, to sing in a choir concert, right? So the thing that challenges especially is theater, because it's all based on thoughts and ideas.
Absolutely. And I think empathy, we don't teach empathy. There is no course in empathy.
No.
And I think the arts so much teach empathy
Mhm.
as well. It's so important. And I hope as we reopen our schools, as students are returning, that the arts
Mhm.
are not cut.
Mhm.
um, how can people get involved with Theater Gap Initiative?
Oh my stars, there are so many ways. So you can visit the
Yes.
there across the bottom here. Visit our website. There are places for you to donate. The thing that I will make an appeal for, and I should have done it at the top of the hour and been like Pavlov's dog every 5 minutes. If you know someone that you think, and I'm telling you, we are designed specifically for students of color, but we are designed also for students who have the heart and the passion to go into the arts and um, would desire a navigational system. If you
Mm.
know a kid like that, I am begging you, drop me a line. Okay, there are ways to contact me through the website. There are ways I can tell you. It's Corey M at theatergap.org. If you see my name, you can see that. Corey M at theatergap.org. Send a kid to me. I will reach out to them directly and talk to them about what their aspirations are to help them.
Mhm.
Of course, as a new nonprofit, there is always a need for money. If you live in the Charlotte area, we are looking for kids from all over the country. So I'm going to be looking for host families, because, these are kids that aren't ready, to me, to have their own apartments, and to
Mhm.
have a loving and supporting family who is there to help look out for them. And I think it creates a level of comfort for parents. It creates a level of comfort for students and stability with what that looks like. Um, because we are going to be sending kids to in-person live auditions when we can, and as well as arranging virtual auditions, I'm going to be setting up for you, sign up for a newsletter, because there will be a way of donating airline miles to help get a kid to an
Mm.
audition. And so if you don't want to give money, I know a whole lot of people, we haven't been able to travel, are going to have airline miles that will expire soon. Give them to us. Give them to us. The life of those miles get extended, and the life of a child gets uh, gets amplified, if you will. So those are just a few of the ways to help us out in this mission.
I love it. Please, everyone, visit the website. Um, Support this incredible organization and this incredible um, Educator. I cannot wait to see what happens with this program, because I think great things are going to come from it, and an opportunity, which is often just the thing people need, is that opportunity. And this is amazing. So thank you. And I told you we'd have more than an hour to spend together. Everybody gets scared when I say an hour, and then the hour flies by.
In my head, Lauren, I was like, I don't feel like talking for an hour. I've been in school all day. But, you've asked so many wonderful questions, and I cannot thank you enough for inviting me on today, especially on such a wonderful day as National Teacher Appreciation Day. It really has been my honor to spend this time with you, and I thank you so much for extending the invitation and helping to get the message of the Theater Gap Initiative out into the world. So I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. And if you tuned in late, you will be able to watch this from the beginning here on Facebook. You will be able to watch it on YouTube. We don't typically get a lot of YouTube viewers, but we had some tonight. So you can watch it on YouTube, and then you can watch it on the website in a couple of days. And you had so much wonderful information to share. I'd love to repurpose this for the podcast as well, so people can hear it everywhere. And I just hope that, who knows, maybe it'll open doors to students from around the country, from around the world who do listen, or parents who are listening. This is an amazing opportunity. And teachers.
Yes.
And teachers. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for tuning in. We have kind of a light week this week, but we have some amazing things happening this month. So if you haven't signed up for the Beltline to Broadway newsletter, or follow us on Facebook, please follow us on social media. We have a huge event coming up May 14th. It's free, but you are not going to want to miss this live chat discussion with the original cast members from the off-Broadway Cherry Lane production of Godspell, which includes Maria from Sesame Street, whose name really isn't Maria, but she'll be with us, Sonia, and I'm very excited about that. So please keep posted on. And Theater Gap Initiative is now on Instagram and Facebook as well, so you can follow Theater Gap Initiative as well. Lots of good work being done in our state. It's very exciting. Thank you for joining me tonight, Corey. I so appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you for watching. And I will see you guys next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.